Hello everyone, welcome to another video. So as I was putting together my Mother's Day recommendations, I got thinking about other people that are caregivers for children but aren't necessarily mothers or fathers or parents. So I thought I'd put together a video about these caretakers if you wanted something a little bit different. I'm going to start with one that I've already talked about in my Mother's Day recommendations, but it fits this prompt, so I'm talking about Mother's Helper by A. Bates. And this is about a girl who goes to be a nanny on this island, and she's very excited because she gets to save money for college and get a tan and have kind of a vacation while also taking care of this child. But then there's some kind of psycho out there that's harassing her, and she's trying to protect this child from this mysterious person. And then we have a classic that I absolutely adore and love and will reread over and over again. And that is the Babysitter series by R.L. Stine. These are point horror novels, and I absolutely love them. There's 4 of them. Here's the first one. Then we have the Babysitter 2, Babysitter 3, and Babysitter 4. And I just love these old vintage covers. You don't really see these much anymore. I say much, but I mean like ever. But I just love them because they have such sheer terror on their faces of these women on the covers, and I just love that. It's very fun and campy, but so as you can tell, this is about a babysitter who's taking care of these kids, but just like in Mother's Helper, she's being harassed. She gets these phone calls and she thinks somebody's creeping around, and she's trying to make sure these kids are safe from whoever is prowling about. And there have been some deaths that involve babysitters in the past, and she doesn't want to become the next victim. So these are very, very fun if you're into vintage horror. And then sticking with the babysitter theme, we have Babysitter's Club. So for those of you that grew up with this like I did, they're very nostalgic, very fun, very fast, easy reads. This is the first one called Christie's Great Idea. But I also decided to showcase some of the more creepy ones in this series since I'm more about thriller and horror books on this channel. So we have The Ghost at Dawn's House, Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls, Jessie and the Dance School Phantom, and Abby and the Notorious Neighbor. And this is kind of like Rear Window by Alfred Hitchcock, where she's sick and she can't leave the house, and so she starts looking out the window and peeking at the neighbors and what they're doing. So I love the Babysitter's Club series. These are all from my childhood, and I love them to death. And if you don't know, this is about a group of girls. They started out with 4 in the beginning, but then they slowly added more members, and they started this Babysitter's Club where decided it would be fun to form this little club so that whenever anybody needed a babysitter, instead of having to call around and ask a whole bunch of people, they could just call one of the Babysitters Club, and then they'd have a whole host of babysitters at their beck and call. They could tell them who's available and who's not and when, and they put together little kits that they would take with them to their babysitting job, and it's just very wholesome, very cute. And you know, kids are hard to take care of, so they get some hijinks and stuff, but it's just a very fun series. And then another babysitter book is The Midnight on Beacon Street by, I believe it's Mary Ruth Verona. It'll be here up on the screen in case I got it wrong. But this is a thriller about a girl who is babysitting, and different things go down that night that she was not expecting. And it jumps around a lot in time, so just be aware of that. There's a lot of backstory in this book. And I enjoyed this one, but I didn't fall head over heels for it because it kind of takes a while to get to any of the good parts. So you're just kind of slogging along, and she's just babysitting, and she's telling about her life, and she's looking back at her past, and nothing really exciting is happening. And then there's one part that gets very exciting, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be good. But then it was like over very quickly. And then I just felt like the ending was okay. Like it wasn't my favorite. So I wouldn't like super strongly recommend this book, but it wasn't terrible at the same time. So if you like more of a slow burn thriller, then this one might really work for you. we have a couple novels that I absolutely adore, fell in love with them. We have Frozen Charlotte and Charlotte Says. So this one's a prequel to Charlotte Says. And this is also a creepy doll book if you're into creepy dolls. So you get the best of both worlds. But this is not babysitters. We're talking about different caregivers. So this takes place in an orphanage. So these are kids that don't have parents, but they're stuck in this orphanage with this woman who is mean and vindictive and not a nice person. And I also discovered these creepy dolls that are made of porcelain called the Frozen Charlottes. And so this is like a haunted house ghost story type vibes. But I absolutely adore these books. I love them so much. They're so very good. So even though they're YA, if you're not normally into YA, I would give this one a shot because they're fantastic. And then we have another orphanage book called Plink Children by Michael Schutz. And I have not read this one, so I can't technically recommend it, but it sounds really good. I love the cover. And this is about a man whose nephew goes missing, and he is devastated because he was kind of a father figure to this boy and they were very close. But then all of a sudden he sees a current picture of him on Facebook and he's like, well, how is that happening? Because he's missing. So he starts to investigate, tries to figure out what really happened to his nephew, and it leads him to this old orphanage. And it's a bit of a ghost story from what I understand as well. So it sounds like it's going to be a really fun horror novel, something to check out if you want to try it. Then sticking with orphanages, we have Boys in the Valley by Philip Vicassi. I, again, absolutely adored this book, loved it, thought it was very good. This has to do with demonic possession, so if that's something that you're interested in, I think this is a good one. So this is about a group of boys who are at an orphanage that's run by these Catholic priests, and once again, they're not very nice, don't really take care of the boys like they should. They're kind of controlling and mean and all of these different things. And now on top of that, this man comes to the orphanage one day who is very sick and he ends up passing away. But then before he passed away, something goes down that gets infected into this orphanage and starts affecting the boys. So love this book, highly recommend it. And then somewhat similar to being in an orphanage, we have the foster care system. And so I'm going to talk about a book called Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I just recently read this one last month and I had a lot of fun with it. This is a dual time period one, so it takes place in the present when the three girls who are in the foster care together are all grown up, and then it also has the past chapters where they're in this foster home together with this woman who is not a nice lady, is very abusive to these girls. And I enjoyed the past chapters way more than the present ones. I didn't really like the present chapters, and honestly, I didn't really like the characters when they were older. I thought they were unlikable, but I did feel for them and feel sympathy for them in the past and what they had to go through because of this despicable lady that, put on the happy face and I'm this great foster mom that's taking care of these children. But really she's just doing it for the money. And, she kind of has the sick, twisted need to have somebody love her, but she doesn't know how to give love back. But anyways, very sad, very good. And I like it because sometimes in thrillers, when you have multiple point of views, they could all kind of melt together and you don't know who's actually talking. But I felt like these three girls were very distinct and different in their personalities, so I did appreciate that. So I thought this was a good one. Okay, so we've done babysitters and we've done orphanages, so now we're going to turn our attention to some grandparents who have taken in some kids after their parents have passed away and have become their guardians. Well, I guess in the case of the first book that I'm going to showcase, the parents didn't die, the mom just abandoned them. But either way, this is a V.C. Andrew novel called The Unwelcomed Child, and this is about a girl who gets abandoned by a mother and dropped off with the grandparents, and the grandparents are very religious, and the girl has always been told that because her mother was sinful and had her out of wedlock, that she was born without a soul. So not very nice, not very pleasant for this child to grow up in this environment, as you can imagine. Then we have The Fullcroft Ghosts by Darcy Coates. And this one is a case where the parents had passed away in a car accident and they're taken in by the grandparents to take care of them. But it turns out that the grandparents are maybe not all that they show themselves to be, and they're hiding some secrets. And it's a bit of a haunted house book as well. So this one is really fun. It reads like YA because these are kids that we're dealing with. I don't think it's technically considered a YA novel, but it does read like YA, and it is involving teenagers. So just go into it realizing that, because I know not everybody likes YA. But anyways, if you like Darcy Coates, if the premise sounds good, then maybe you should check it out. Now in this one, I'm stretching the caregiver thing a little bit, but I want to talk about The Night Visitors by Carol Goodman. And in this one, we're talking about a social worker, but the mother is there, but obviously something happens, and it sounds like she's running away from an abusive relationship with her 10-year-old son, and the social worker steps in to help them. But instead of taking them to like a shelter like she should have, she takes them home to her own house, which is against the rules and against ethical guidelines. And apparently she's pretty fixated on this boy because it reminds her of her missing brother, who went missing at the same age that this boy is right now. So I know we already talked about babysitters, but babysitters only look after the kids for one night. And so I'm going to be switching gears to nannies who take care of the kids as their main job. We're going to start it with Turn of the Screw, which is a very, very big classic. So you've likely heard of it, but I just finally read it a year or two ago, and I thought it was really good. It's a bit of a ghost story as well, and I absolutely love Mike Flanagan's adaptation of it, set in modern times. But for those that may not know, this is about a woman who is a nanny to a boy and a girl, and she starts seeing like ghostly visitations of the previous nanny and another man that is working for the family. And so she's trying to decide if it's true that she's seeing these things or if she's going crazy. And this is a bit of a creepy kid book as well, because the one child, Miles, I believe his name is, he's a bit of a mischievous child. It's very short, so if it's something you're interested in, if you like the classics, then I highly recommend checking it out. And then speaking of Turn of the Screw, we have a literary adaptation of it, or retelling, I should say, which is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. And I really loved this book. I thought it was really good. So this is about a young teenager, and or maybe she's not a teenager. She's probably in her low 20s. But anyway, so she gets this job being a nanny for these kids, and she's in this like smart home where the home has a lot of like technology, which I thought was really interesting. But you could take this as a bit of like a haunted house book as well. It's more of a thriller, but she kind of starts to suspect that maybe the house is haunted, and there's creepy things going on with these children, and it does have a little bit of a creepy doll aspect to it. But anyways, I thought it was an enjoyable time. I really liked this one a lot. This is my first Ruth Ware book that I've read, and I fell in love with it. Then we have Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. And this is about a girl and her mother. And her mother is the one that's supposed to be looking after this child, but she helps out, she's just there with her mom. But one of the children ends up getting hurt, and they think that she had something to do with this baby's death. So now she's being investigated by the police. This is a YA novel, but again, I think it can appeal to adult audiences because of the subject matter. It can get pretty heavy and pretty sad. And then another YA novel is The Companion by Katie Allender, and I absolutely adore this book. Love it, love it, love it. First of all, this cover, it's stunning. And I don't think this book has this cover anymore. I think they've changed it since I bought the book, which is unfortunate because I love this cover. And maybe it's just the paperback that's different. I'm not sure. But anyways, I'm glad to have this copy of it because I just think this cover is awesome. So this one is a little bit different. She's not a nanny watching over kids. She's a companion. And so she's looking over this, I guess, child, because they're both teenagers, which is still a child. But she's hired to be a companion to this other teenage girl because something happened in her past. I can't quite remember what that is. I don't remember if there was like a trauma or an accident or I don't know. I don't remember, but something happened to her and she's mute and she can't take care of herself and she just kind of sits there all day. And so the parents hire her to be a companion to look after this teenage girl and to be her friend and to make sure she's okay. But this has got such good atmosphere and such good creepy vibes, and I absolutely adored this book. And then we have The Nesting by C.J. Cook. And this is another book that's kind of like Turn of the Screw and Turn of the Key, where this woman is a nanny for this man who just recently lost his wife to suicide. So she goes to be a nanny to his two little girls and immediately falls in love with them. But she's in this creepy house that's kind of like by a fjord, and it's damp and it's rainy there a lot and just creepy and atmospheric. And she starts to suspect that something is wrong with this house, and she starts seeing muddy footprints and different things. So anyways, I love the vibes, love the premise. Then we have The Nanny by Gilly Macmillan. And I have not read this one yet, and I had to read the back to remind myself what it was about. This is about a girl who grew up with a nanny, and she adored that nanny, loved her, but then she just unexpectedly up and left, and she was devastated. So then as an adult, she goes back to being with her mother at her house, and she's not happy to be there because she always blamed her mom for the loss of her nanny because she just probably assumed that for financial reasons or other reasons, it was her mom's fault that her nanny left. But then they discover a skull in the backyard, and so I'm assuming it's probably the nanny's head. It doesn't say that, but that's the assumption. And so she wants to know what happened to her nanny. But then as she's talking to her mother, she kind of gets confused and muddled, and she doesn't know who to believe. She doesn't know who the villain of the story is. Is it the mother that was the villain, or was it the nanny that was the villain? So it sounds very intriguing, very interesting. I'm very excited to read this soon. Then we have Nanny Needed by Georgina Cross. And this one I also haven't read, but I'm looking forward to spending time with. And this sounds a lot like The Housekeeper by Frida McFadden, but a nanny instead of a housekeeper. So she gets this dream job with this very rich lady, and she's just stunned that she gets to stay at this beautiful house and she gets all this money. And the woman that hires her seems really friendly and nice and like they could be best friends. And so she's really looking forward to this job. But then once she starts the job, maybe things aren't quite what they appear. So this sounds like it should be a fun time. And then, of course, I have to mention Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. I adore this book. I love it so much. This is my very favorite read of, I believe, was it 2022 that this came out? I guess I could look. Yeah, 2022. So this was my favorite book of 2022. Absolutely adore this book. So this is about a girl who gets hired as a nanny for this little boy named Teddy. And she has drug addiction problems, so she was a little bit worried that she wouldn't be hired in the first place, but she caught a lucky break and she gets to be this kid's nanny, and she really likes and enjoys this job. But the parents, in particular the mom, is a little bit crazy, and she has to dealing with the parents. And there seems to be a secret that's in the past, and this is also a ghost story. And I love it because it's called Hidden Pictures, and there's actually hand-drawn pictures in it, which is just awesome. It really adds to the story. So they start out really friendly and fun and like what you would expect from a little boy drawing pictures, but then they increasingly get more sinister. So you got one where they're like screaming in terror. We got a body being put in a grave. This one was the creepiest ones. But anyways, I just thought that really added to the story, and I thought it was a lot of fun. But I love this book. It's one of my absolute favorite thrillers of all time. So we're going to end it on a different note because these were all thriller horror books, but I'm going to end it with a romance, which is called Masquerade by Sierra St. James. And this is an older book, but I absolutely recommend it if you can get your hands on it. I don't know if it's still in print. It should be. I mean, it's old, but it's not like super old. Oh, yeah, so this came out in 2001. So like I said, it's old, and I don't even know if it's in print anymore, but it should be because that's not like super old. But anyways, this is one of my favorite romances of all time, and this is about a girl who, or a woman, I should say, and she gets a job as a nanny with this famous movie star, and she has her own daughter, but he tells her that, it's fine. I have to be on location at different places. You can bring your daughter along and they can be friends, and because they're about the same age as his daughter. And so she's like, okay, great. So she becomes the nanny, but he starts falling in love with her. But on the application, she tells him that she's married because she doesn't think that he would hire her if she was a single mother, because it just seemed unstable, and it seemed, like she didn't want him to think that she was there just to be with him because he is this famous celebrity, and so she doesn't want to come across as this crazy lady that just wants to be with the celebrity, so she pretends to be married. So when he starts to like her, he's a very moral guy and he doesn't want to cheat. He doesn't want to be an adulterer. So he, is like, dang it, I really like this girl, but I can't do anything about it because she's married. And she kind of starts to fall for him too, but she's like, I'm just this frumpy, like down to earth middle class lady. Like, he's never gonna look at me twice when he's got all these beautiful, glamorous movie stars around him. But, anyways, I love this book. I thought it's so fun and so cute. So, if you can find a copy, I highly recommend it. So that's all the books I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know by hitting that thumbs up, and let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and if you enjoyed them. And please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you all later. See ya.